Archipelago? Is it archipelago? For a while, I was calling it Archipelago. So, like,
Yeah.
what is it? Like, how
Yeah.
do you even pronounce it?
The archipelago awaits.
Yeah, I do believe, although it's spelled ARCH like an arch, I think it's archipelago. That's what I think the proper pronunciation, but
Archipelago.
archipelago.
Well, I was 28 when I first heard archipelago, and I had absolutely no idea what it meant. And I bet there's lots of people that are hearing this word for the first time. How old were you when you first heard the word?
Well, I had to do a paper or a writing assignment in grade 3. So I would be 8 years old, and what the requirement was that you had to pick over a 10-letter word. And this was the word I picked. So I'm very familiar because I wrote that probably stellar report, I'm sure, on that subject. So yeah,
And what is an archipelago?
yeah, an archipelago is just a series or group of islands. So I think when you think of like the Hawaiian Islands, or when you talk to someone going to Hawaii, they think it's a singular island. And then when you've talked to people that have went there, they go, oh no, we went to Maui or Oahu or the Big Island or Kauai. But actually, I believe there's over 130 islands in the Hawaiian archipelago. Now, the vast majority we would probably not have access to, but that if you actually took a sort of a sky shot of it all, that's what would form that. So a series of islands that form a sort of the archipelago.
Right. And what's another really important concept? So, archipelago is a string of islands. One thing that we talk about, and a way that we kind of like think about life, is this idea of being a traveler or being a tourist. And they're kind of two opposing views on how you can tackle life.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it, for me, a tourist, when you sit down, is what a typical person. They would go to pick a destination, they would see the 2 or 3 or 4 things in the guide to go see. They would travel on the bus or travel around in a sort of a clump of people, and that's it. They don't go beyond that, and they keep it very safe, very, very controlled, and that to me is a tourist. We're a traveler, and then like a traveler is the person that goes beyond those. It's not that they wouldn't see those same things, but I think they go and they get sort of absorbed into the culture. They go behind the scenes, if you will. So sometimes when you ask people, how was the trip? They're really describing the 2 or 3 things they saw. Where a traveler really would be about the people, about the things behind it, sort of the hidden things, so you can get a real feel for the area. And most people, that's way outside their comfort zones.
And that really connects with me because before I heard the tourist versus traveler metaphor, I heard Mo Guad explain this idea of an explorer. He painted the picture of you wake up and you're on a boat and you're just surrounded by fog. How do you know where you're going? How do you know where you're supposed to go? If you're, say, in the 1700s and you're going to explore and try to find an archipelago, you don't know exactly where you're going, but you have to use your intuition and you have to kind of take it step by step because you're surrounded by fog and you just have to go a little bit to the left and you have to see what is to the left, what's over there, how does it make me feel? And then sometimes you have to just go back to the right and see what's over on the right and then compare the two. And that explorer mentality can be applied day to day in life where you're not 100% sure on what that next step is, but it's to go explore that next step.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point in the sense that if you think about the explorers of the 500, 600, 700 years ago, they always used the word they discovered, which means they stumbled upon. So I think for ourselves in our lives, do we want to be where it's so certain that every step you know the exact outcome, you know? To me, that's a life of safety, but I'd really more for myself want to go and say, you know, where does this path take us? So to your point about the fog, we're just going to go. Now, obviously, it can be a little bit more dangerous with a ship in the fog, but the idea is that we're not afraid to see where we end up, see where life takes us, and discover, you know, the islands of our life.
Some of my favorite memories are when I get surprised. I found myself going to an event. Say I'm going to a New Year's party. I've been to 10 New Year's parties before, so it's easy for me to judge what's on the other side of that fog. But the surprising, the great memory part of those parties is the unexpected person that you meet, the unexpected event that you think that you can see on the other side of the fog, but you're surprised you discover something that you actually didn't expect on the other side. And those make some of my best memories and also have had the biggest impact on me as a person.
I think of John Lennon, and I think his quote was something is, life isn't sort of what you plan, but what happens around those plans. So the more we can open up and see what's through that fog and be open to that discovery and take that steps and get a little uncomfortable sometimes, I think the rewards are amazing. I think if you look back, where your life, my life, I think a lot of the things that we hold sort of the most value are the things that were probably like the surprises, the things that were least planned. And so that's the exciting part of life.
To let yourself be uncomfortable. Jeff Bezos had a letter he released recently, and it was about how being you is actually difficult. And it's ironic because typical advice is to be yourself. Oh, just be yourself. Be yourself. Well, actually being yourself requires a lot of effort, a lot of intention, and the easiest thing to do would just be the average of what's around you, because the average of what's around you has already been set up and you can kind of fall into that. But to be yourself means that you have to listen to yourself. You have to be willing to explore and willing to be able to get on the ship to then go somewhere that's different, but that's more true to you.
Yeah, and I think that's very difficult, actually. It's like you said, it's easier said than done. Probably the biggest part within that as well is that when you're trying to be you, the whole world is sort of built for you to conform to either the set of standards, conform to the path that's already taken. So for you to step outside that, I mean, you have to be very comfortable with yourself because you know the noise that you would hear or the uncomfort you would feel. So then, yeah, to me, it's about, can you discover yourself and can you stand by yourself and make those decisions and go on those paths and see what life unfolds for you.
Now we're taking the idea of the traveler, the explorer, and now we're applying it to this theme of an archipelago. And what we're saying is that an archipelago it's a grand idea. It's self, it's health. It's not, in our podcast, it's not a physical location. It's an island of your mind. And each island inside of this archipelago is a thought, it's an idea. And what we want to do is we want to be explorers of thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for ourselves, the question is, how many islands consist in our archipelago? In our minds, we might think it's just one. But I think if you start to explore out and go outside, there's a tremendous amount. And I think there'll be a whole bunch that we never discover in our entire lifetime. But the idea is to push beyond and see, can we make that 10 islands, 20 islands, 50 islands, 100 islands, and be comfortable going there and seeing what's there and see how we interact with those islands. So yeah, so super excited about going on this journey.
Mm-hmm. And explaining this concept to some of my friends and some of my family members, it was actually really cool to see people connect with the metaphor on where are they, what island are they in their life. One of my friends, he just finally found his career. He was probably searching on his boat for this career for 5 years. And now he's finally got to a place where he's happy with his career and he actually sees that long-term path where that fog's kind of faded now. But now when he turns around and he looks in these other directions, he's got spare time, and he's like, he said he was spending time on things that he used to do when he was 15, things that he put down and now he can pick up again. And now he's looking around and he's saying, well, okay, well, I have a good foundation of this career island, but what are these other parts of life in these other islands? And you know what, I'm a little uncomfortable, and now I'm looking around, I'm not sure exactly where I'm supposed to go. But it was cool seeing the analogy and seeing how it can apply to your life, if it's concepts and ideas like bridging the gap, or if it's where you are in your life at this moment and you're trying to say, okay, well, I want to make a change, but all I see is fog. What do I do now?
Our lives have got more complex than are simple. And there's a lot of things when we were young, life was simple. And we were curious and we would explore. And then we get sort of into that conformity mode and it's harder and harder. So yeah, so I think really, you know, it's interesting when you say he's got his career. It'd be interesting if you looked 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now and say, does he still have that same career or that was just another island that he went on? At the moment we think, oh, here, well, this is the island we're going to live for the rest of our life. And in fact, we might be just passing through the vast majority. So I think it's about just allowing it to unfold and understand that you can settle on that island, but keep exploring because you never know where life will take you.
And a concept that we have behind the podcast as well is called finding obvious. And that's a portion of you're looking into the fog. How do I decide where to go? How do I know if it's this island? How do I know if it's that island? But the idea of finding obvious actually came from me and my business partner. We were actually discussing the strategic plan of our company, and we had two decisions. We had a software service company that we were trying to run, and then we were also running a software development company. And we were saying, why are we doing this? Like, our core business is building software for other people. Why aren't we focusing our time and effort on building software? Why are we trying to focus on selling this product? And we looked at each other, and it just became obvious that we were doing it wrong and that we needed to change course. So from that idea, from that concept, is that sometimes the best decisions are the most obvious decisions, but it's finding those obvious decisions and then acting on them.
I think a lot of times the path is there for us, but for whatever reason we can't take it, won't take it, refuse to believe it's that simple, and we make it a lot more complex. So we go on this journey, we go on this long journey only to discover we come back to right where we were standing. So yeah, I think a lot of times when we sit there, whether you think it's intuition, whether you look at stuff, you know instinctively probably this is the path, but for whatever reason, sometimes you just have to go on the other ones to get back there. But yes, in our life, if we can journey to that simplicity or that obvious, then that's usually the right path for us. I think it's very rare that it isn't.
And I think there's two ways to find the obvious. I think that you can stumble upon it by seeing the problem, seeing where you want to go and kind of painting the picture of it, or you can find it by comparing it to another path. Like you said, you could go down a path and you can live it, you can experience it. If your boat's sailing towards an iceberg, hopefully you can see far enough ahead that you can course correct and you know you can adjust from there. So sometimes the comparison of the path that you are on to exploring different paths can help you find the obvious.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that's one way. The second way inside there is also the experience of other people. That a lot of these paths, although some of them might feel new to us, or have been taken by somebody else. And so to me, can we understand their journey, what applies from their journey to ours, to help us sort of guide us on that path, if that makes sense. So yeah, comparison, experience, and sometimes you just, like I said, you stumble upon it. It just comes to you like an aha moment.
But let's get a little bit more in depth on kind of who we are so we can give the audience like a better glimpse into us. There's this way of introducing yourself. It's called name, fame, same, aim, and game. And it's a concept of saying, who are you? How do you relate with somebody? The fame, what kind of makes you stand out? Your aim, what are you doing in these next 6 months? And then game, what's the next 3 to 6 years? So why don't you start us off, Daryl?
Sure. So my name is Daryl Kenna. I was born and raised in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. I'm a CEO of an asset management company. We own real estate and insurance companies and insurance solutions, so more like a REIT, so that would be the comparable. Fame, let's see, fame, well, college graduate of business. I guess I was the distinguished alumni for the college. I've ran lots of companies, probably have been part of buying and selling, it's probably heading to $500 million for sure by now. In terms of company, I also wrote my own book called Vision Meets Execution, which is a day in the life of a CEO and COO, the two pivotal parts of a business. Aim in the next 30 to 90 days, really we run our company today, our Epiphany Group company, but we want to really strive for what we call operational excellence. So really the next 90 days is our OKR system, is everything is focused on that, accelerating that and living that. And the next 3 to 6 years kind of idea, what we'd want to do is we have just under 100 million in real estate assets, I'd like to see that number over $500 million. And I'd like to see us go over 100 million of gross written premium for an insurance company. Those would be the two sort of 5-year goals, 5-6 years goals.
Very cool.
And yourself, tell us about yourself.
My name's Wes Howery. I'm an entrepreneur. My dad owned a small business. My grandpa owned a small business. So I have that entrepreneurial spirit, and you could say it's in my blood. Fame, I taught myself how to program. I went to school for finance, and my derivatives prof said if you wanted to start trading, you should learn Python. So I actually graduated right at COVID and couldn't find a job. And I spent the next year teaching myself how to program and then starting my own software development consulting business, building websites. So more of, say, like a marketing media company. And then from there, I ended up finding my business partner, and we started a new company with the help of some venture capitalists called Stratus Advanced Technologies. So that's where I'm at today. The aim is to really learn how you can integrate AI tools into business. What does that next generation of business look like? Because I feel like there's a foundation of business that we're going to talk about. But once you have that foundation, how can you integrate AI into it? And the game, so the next 3 to 6 years, I love the idea of venture capitalism. Like it drives me. When I look at venture capitalism and they're starting businesses, you have such a difficult roadblock that you have to overcome. What we want to do with Stratus Advanced Technologies is we want to have the technology layer, the AI layer, the AI tools, where we can partner with domain experts in, say, special areas, and we don't have to worry about the technology side. Stratus has the technology tools and the integrations, where now we can partner and start new businesses almost like a venture capitalist, where now you can have the technology, find the business partner, be able to build products for those markets. Because I love talking about being creative and thinking of what market can we go after? Who's our ideal client profile? What can we do? What value can we provide? What problem can we solve? I love being creative and thinking about that. So if I picture myself in 5 years, if we're building software companies for different industry problems and I can be creative to solve problems, what do you think your superpower is? So if you look at those different businesses you started, is there a common theme where you stand out, where you can say, this is what I'm really good at and this is what's helped guide my journey?
Yeah, probably it's going to sound like a weird superpower, but probably the best way to describe it is, have you ever went into a real dirty room? I know it's going to sound like a bizarre question. And you know that feeling that you're, like the dust or the stuff's all over your skin, like that kind of feeling? Well, that's the same sort of feeling I get when I sort of sit inside of businesses and when I interact with processes or the lack thereof. That's that feeling. So that's my superpower. I can really sense that this is sort of not balanced, not in equilibrium in terms of the way it functions. So, and it comes really quick. And so I don't have to be in there for years. I could be in there for 20 minutes and I just instantly sort of get a sense of this is the problem, this is the path. And a lot of times it's the person that I'm talking to could be the barrier to that outcome. And so for whatever that, I see it that clear. Now, then to execute on, then take the steps, that's a little bit trickier and not as accelerated. But yeah, so that what I would say is my superpower, that, that I can feel the business.
Yeah, and one of my favorite concepts from your book and some of the theories that you've talked about is the compression of X. And it's about how can you do that thing X, what you're doing, and how can you continue to improve that process to be able to compress it, to be able to do it, and be able to do it more efficient. And that's what's going to be really cool as we explore these different archipelagos of life and experience, emotions, business. There's so many concepts that you've put together and that I'm kind of living and experiencing right now that we can discuss more. So why don't you give a little teaser on where we're going in the future? What are some archipelagos?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some exciting islands that we explore. In my mind, like probably the one that jumps out at me the first and the most is that just that idea of I'm an employee and I want to jump to owning my own business. What are all the steps involved inside of that? What is that whole journey like? Because there is this idea, this concept or myth about, oh, it's this glorious, glamorous thing. What is it really in practicality? So that I think is an island that probably has a lot of sub-islands on it too as well.
For me, mindset is extremely important. These last 2 years, I've been going on this journey of like learning more about myself, learning more about my emotions, how do things make me feel, and that's actually helped guide my path and helped me make decisions, easy and hard decisions. So I think mindset and self is something to me which is really important that I'd love to share and talk about.
Yeah, and I think the extension of, when you mentioned the extension of compression of X, then to me that really is about time. How do we use time? What's our relationship to time? So I see time as an island that we definitely could hang out and spend some time on. So,
And when we're talking about time, we're also talking about risk, which is another island or another archipelago where it's what is perceived risk? How, when I make a decision, how can I offset the risk of what I think the potential downside is to the upside, and how can I maybe take a step that's uncomfortable because of this perceived risk I have?
yeah, and you can see in those first four sort of teasers that we've sent out, there's lots of islands, but really probably one of the things that we'd like to also do is have our listeners shoot in maybe some islands that they are heading to, have been to, maybe we have been, maybe we haven't. So yeah, so we could have a collaborative thing saying, is there places we want to go or they want us to go there, and then we would head and explore there. So super exciting.
Absolutely. And part of this is that me and you are on a journey. We don't exactly know where we're going to go with this. This is brand new to us. We've never filmed a podcast before. We're on a journey and we want to see where this goes, and it's going to take some time for us to discover. For myself, I'm more introverted. So taking that time, putting myself out there, being able to speak is me pushing myself to do something that I'm more uncomfortable with. So to hear myself talk, to be able to explain ideas and be able to just go on this journey is going to help me grow a lot as a person. And I'm really looking forward to taking those steps.
Yeah, and for myself, when you say you're an introvert, and I sort of view myself as more of a blend actually. But a lot of this is, for me, is predicated on the way I grew up. I grew up very sort of, I'll use the term disadvantaged, with not very much opportunity. And so as the opportunities came, then I just kept exploring and taking advantage of those opportunities. So I sort of visualized myself one day as a very old man looking back on my life. And I don't want my life to have regrets where I didn't go, didn't take the chance, didn't take the step. So for me, this is a continuous lifelong journey. So I don't believe it's tied to age as much as every single year I want to discover stuff. I want to, be open-minded to where life takes me and just let it unfold. So this will be an exciting journey for myself as well.
When I used to hear things like that, where I don't want to live life without regrets or I have no regrets, I always thought there was a bit of bullshit in the person. I always thought that, like, how is that possible? But since I've been going on this journey, like I can see that being truth, and now I can actually start putting those puzzle pieces together. Because if you live every single day intentionally listening to yourself on the journey, and you make the best decision with the information you have at the time, you can actually wake up the next day knowing that you intentionally did everything you could with the information you had. And if you do that day over day over day, you can live a life and say at the end, like you're saying, I have no regrets.
Yeah, no regrets. No, I think you hit it on exactly. So I think for people, I think it's about the steps they didn't take, the path they didn't. I should have done this. I could have. I would have. Those are words I don't ever use in my vocabulary. Could have, would have, should have. Just live your life. Like you said, take the information you have at the moment, make the choice, the path, and then live with the outcome, and that's okay. And so to me, yes, I believe fully that I will arrive in my old age in the rocking chair with no regrets.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, a quote I heard the other day is, I don't know where I'm going, but I know exactly how to get there. But I guess we do know where we're going. We're going to the rocking chair
Yep.
as old men.
Yeah, that's the ultimate destination, I suppose, right?
Exactly, and hopefully we know how to get there.
No doubt. Yeah, and I think that quote really just sort of says there is no right or wrong path. It's your path, and it has to be right because it's your path, and you're the one. You're the architect of that path. So obviously, if you end up somewhere you don't want to be, I don't think you have to look any further than yourself and the choices that you've made, or the directional changes you did or didn't do. So as we're super excited about where we're going in the next 5 years, like I said, then we would like to have you come on our journey with you. Hop aboard our ship and come on the journey as we travel around, explore some islands, explore the islands of our lives in our archipelago, and welcome aboard. Let's go on this journey.